start writing poetry?
So I started writing poetry back in like high school because they during writing or whatever they have the little poetry unit and they introduce us to poetry and all that blah blah blah. And I kind of just started getting into it. I thought it was really cool. I just kind of liked it, and so I would read a lot of poetry. Oh, but now I think about it, even before that too, in like elementary school, I was in this little group that we actually used to read poems a lot. It wasn't just solely poems, but we also read like other books, but like we would read poetry as well. And so I think maybe that kind of introduced it to me as well, but not to, not in a greater aspect of it. I would say that more so came towards high school. So yeah, like during high school was really when I was introduced to it, and then I started wanting to write my own. That's when I really started to want to write my own, to be honest, instead of reading other. I was like, no, I think I could do this. Like, it sounds pretty fun. So I started kind of writing it for fun, and then like, we'd have to write it for assignments and stuff. But like, I would get really into it for the assignments. Like, people were just writing it just to write it, get their grade or whatever. But I was like, no, I was really thinking about this. People were like, it's not that deep. I'm like, no, it is. Like, it is that deep. Like, I gotta write this. Like, so yeah, I started kind of getting into it, and then I was like, you know what, I could do this for fun. It doesn't even have to be like, because the poetry unit, obviously, they only last for so long. But then after that, I was like, I want to keep doing it. I want to know more about it. So I started writing it, like looking up stuff myself. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
So, do you think school helped you to become, well, it obviously introduced you in a way to poetry. Do you feel like it's helped you become a better poet?
Not directly, maybe indirectly, based upon like just experiences I've had throughout school and throughout my school years. That's kind of given me like material for poetry at some points, but I wouldn't say it's kind of shaped the way I write poetry. That really came like outside of school. It definitely made an impact as far as introducing me to poetry though.
Do you think school should, obviously your school did it, and to a degree my school introduced us to poetry as well. I'd say it was like more structured and less free. Like they didn't really give us the creative freedom to write our own poetry.
Right.
But do you think school should give that opportunity to students to write and showcase their own poetry and explore that artistic medium?
I think so, because I feel like there's a lot of good things that could come with it. Like it allows, especially if you do it in like a safe space, it allows kids the freedom to be more vulnerable and like to use their words in a powerful way, use their words to spark a change or, to express themselves better, not like just be like, oh, hey, this is the structure I want you to do for this poem. And then you just like regurgitate something that kind of makes sense. It doesn't even have to make sense. Just regurgitate something that fits in that structure and I'll give you an A and then we'll be done with this unit. That's basically how they do it, which is like cool. Like, and some kids like me, we look at it and it's like, okay, cool, I really like it. And then we have the freedom to do it outside of school. But it's just like other kids, it doesn't, when you do it like that for certain kids, it's kind of like, it doesn't make them interested in it,
Right. It kills the spirit of it.
Yeah, it makes them feel like, dang, this is a task. This isn't fun. This isn't something I feel like I want to be vulnerable in. Because it kind of just feels like, dang, this is just a grade. Like, I don't want to be vulnerable in it because who cares? No one cares. It's just a grade.
Yeah, no, I don't want to like crap on the school system, even though I do at the same time.
Right.
I'm like a big advocate for changing the way we do school and introducing topics that allow for more human development. And I do believe poetry, like you said, is a way for people to better articulate themselves. And I think it's something that you can take out of school like you did and just use it to express how you feel, express your perspectives on life. And you really don't know the value of that until you do it and you put it out into the world and you see people connect with it. So I think that's a big thing when it comes to like making changes like that and like such a structured system as like the education system is, they want to see the data. And sometimes the true value of something, you know, there's no data for that, you know.
Exactly.
How do you like quantify how impactful a poem is to someone?
Right.
Especially if they don't tell you, you know, like if you post online and they just read it, but they don't like it, they don't comment on it, but it stays with them for the rest of their life, you know, like you can't put a number to that. You can't put a value to that. And I honestly think schools should explore making poetry like a class and giving people the freedom, because especially for black kids,
yes,
I mean, especially for men, you know,
yes,
it's huge.
So useful.
Yeah, because we I don't want to say we as a throw my ass in there, but you know,
You're like them.
I'll say we, fuck it. We don't always know how to express our feelings in an open and safe way, and because we don't, we resort to, you know, crutches, addictions, maybe even violence, yelling, a lot of anger. Like emotions really just turn to anger because that's the only emotion we're allowed to express. So
I definitely get that, because I see too that with guys too, it's when you don't give people the outlet to express themselves in a vulnerable way, they will refrain from doing so, like at all, just period. And that's why it's like it's kind of just like a vicious cycle, because like society gets mad at, well, I don't want to say society as a whole, but like I guess I would say women would get mad at men for not expressing themselves, but then society as a whole punishes men for expressing themselves because they weren't given the proper tools to express themselves. So it's just like a whole vicious cycle. Yeah, it's not good. But I think introducing poetry and remaining consistent with it throughout school.
Yeah, I like what you said. It's definitely a tool. It's definitely a tool that I think could change people's lives. And that brings me to the next question. How did becoming a poet and you know, writing your own poetry change your life for the better?
I feel like it made me, it kind of, in a way, it was like looking in a mirror, you know, like it kind of gave you an outlet to reflect upon yourself, because I would write things down just to get it out, and then, you know, sometimes I'll tweak it a bit to sound good, but then I'd look at it and I'd just be like, it would help me understand and like process how I'm feeling and like why I'm feeling this way, and like it made me understand myself more to a certain extent, like to do some deeper like inner work. Okay, like I would write something like, okay, I feel this way, it felt good to get this out, but now what, right? Like, okay, so now I need to do the inner work to figure out why I feel that way, and you know, go from there.
So this is a little side note question, inspired by what you just said, because as a musician, sometimes I feel like I write songs that I don't relate to in the moment, but as time passes, I can see why I wrote the song. Do you ever feel like that when you write a poem, that like in the moment you don't know what it means, but as you live your life, you start to see why you wrote that poem?
Yes, definitely. I definitely feel that way. Like I'll just like a line will like come across my mind. I'm like, oh my god, I need to write that in my notes. I'm not feeling like that in that moment, but it's just like that really speaks to me. That just spoke to me. Let me write it down, and then I'll go back to my notes and I'll be like, aha, like I know what I need to write about this, and I'll kind of just build off of that line.
That's exactly how I write music sometimes.
Yeah.
but I think my process is a little bit different, because sometimes a line will come to me and I'll be like, yo, that shit is hard.
And you feel like that's the time you're like, yeah, this hits too
Just
much.
picture the imaginary crowd in your head reacting, and you're like, yeah, that's fire. Oh man. But
Seriously.
so I mean, while we're on that topic, what are some of the ways that you've noticed that your poetry has affected other people, whether in a positive way or a negative way?
other people want to share their poetry with me because like I'll have someone that I didn't even know they wrote poetry like that for real, but like they'll see me and I don't post like that as of lately, but like when I do, people will like hit me up about it and be like, dang, like this is nice, and I'm like, oh snap, like I didn't know like people were still looking at it like that, and then they're like, oh, can I show you something? And they like will show me their writing, and I like this is really cool. Like I just like that. I like when people show me their writing and we just like kind of just go back and forth on it, and then they're like, that kind of reminds me of when I wrote this, and then if they show me something, I'm like, oh my god, that's like, it's like it feels like we're all connected, you know, and I love that. Like I think it's really dope.
It sounds like a forum, like almost like a forum of vulnerability. I don't know if that would be like the proper term.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. I love that term, forum of vulnerability. Yeah.
For sure. I think for sure it's funny because you were telling me before we started that, you know, you're traveling the world. I think like around the world, people are looking to connect with people, and we're looking for different ways to connect because, you know, the world is changing. So and as the world changes and technology changes, people change in response to it. And as we've collectively become more disconnected due to technology, we're unconsciously and some people consciously are searching for ways to connect with people. And what it sounds like, you know, what you just described to me sounds like a very, very real way of connecting with people that, I mean, I think is very, very beautiful. Very, very beautiful.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's really awesome. That's one of the main things I've seen with writing poetry, and that's something that makes me want to keep sharing it. Like, I'm always going to write, but that's definitely something that makes me want to keep sharing it. Like, oh my god, like, I got to put more stuff out, so then, you know.
So, really cool. With that said, do you think, based off of what you just said, do you believe that you have, like, a responsibility to society or the world or God or the universe or whatever you believe to continue to put your poetry out and continue to create these forums of vulnerability and continue to create these connections? Do you feel a responsibility to do that?
I would say yes. I used to not think that I did because, you know, you think about things like, okay, yeah, it's not about me, so at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what goes on in the world because it's not about me, it's not my show, so who cares? But then, like, as I've gotten older and, like, as I've just gotten introduced to all these different kinds of things, I kind of realized that, like, just because it's not about you, that's what makes it even more important that you share your ideas and that you share your poetry, you share your art, you share things that could provoke change. Because yes, it's not about you, but that's exactly why you need to share it. Because yeah, it's not about you. You're gonna die. Everyone's gonna die that's alive right now. You're all gonna die, but other people are gonna come up, and it's about the people that are gonna follow you and the children that are gonna follow you. And it's about that. That's what it's really about. So I think it really is like a responsibility. Like, okay, hey, yeah, it's not about me, but I need to share this and get this out there because there's people looking up to me, whether that be like a child or even like grown adults like that look up to me. So it's just like, okay, it is a responsibility in a way.
I think that's interesting because that just brought me back to yesterday when I was driving on the highway. It's weird, I was thinking about the same exact thing. I was thinking, you know, like, some people grow up in environments where there is no obvious light, you know, like there's nothing to really turn to that can push you forward into being a better human being, and you know, there's no like obvious opportunities out there for you. You just see nothing but darkness, or you see nothing but pain, or you see nothing but hurt, you see nothing but self-sabotage. Like there are those environments out there in the world. And it's so important that not just as creatives, but as people, that you don't hoard your dreams, because you really don't know, like you said, how it can affect people. You really don't know what the next generation is going to cling to and I don't know I forgot what this musician's name was, but I think her name is Vashti Bunyan, something like that. But she made music like a long time ago, and I think she only made one album. And when she released that album, she didn't get too much praise or any positive reception, not too much. But years later, like 50, 40, 30 years later, people are coming back to her music. So, you know, it may not be your time when you release it, but especially nowadays where everything's digital, like that's whatever you put out there is going to be out there for a while. So you never know, like people may connect with it 100 years from now, and you may be the next Picasso, but during your time you're just the average Joe or the average Jane. But the history books are going to look at you differently. Like you really never know. And that brings me to something that Kanye said. I was watching an interview, and he said, y'all liked my interview from 2013. Y'all loved that, but during that time, nobody liked it. You know, I'm ahead of my time. I'm 10 years ahead. When y'all are in 2013, I'm in 2023. And I was like, you know what? Like, I gotta start looking at it like that.
Yeah.
I gotta start looking at it like that, because you know, when I put stuff out there, I'm like, damn, this is hard. Like, why are people responding to it the way that I feel like they should?
I think it's time sensitive,
yeah. There's times for everything. You know, there's a time for everything, and nowadays people are into stuff that's more like quick and out there. But there's gonna be a time where people are looking for something that's genuine and authentic and real, and when they are, because that's a natural human instinct, they'll come.
Yeah.
They'll come.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely agree.
Now we are at the magic question. The question of the day. What do you think the role of a poet is in society?
The role of a poet? I think the role of a poet in society is to kind of just provoke genuine thought out of society as a whole. Whether that be about love, whether that be about society itself, whatever the poem is about, whatever that piece is, I think it's put out there to provoke something in someone. What that provokes out of the person or what that provokes out of society is kind of out of that poet's control once the writing is out there. But I think it's meant to provoke. It's meant to be provocative.
It's meant to be. That reminds me of do you know what that movie is called? With Will Ferrell and I forgot the dude's name, but they were skating, and they also had a snippet in one of the Kanye West songs. He said, "It doesn't need to make sense. It just needs to be provocative." Some shit like that. Man,
yeah,
I'm butchering it.
Literally, just like that. Exactly.
I want to say I'm butchering it. I hate when I butcher some shit I'm trying to explain.
No, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, that's a great point though. Like it doesn't exactly. That's exactly what it is. If it provokes some thought, because then that's gonna bounce off into another thought, and then that's gonna bounce off into an idea, and that's gonna spark change. That's how change happens. That's how change happens. The change that people want to see, you know, whether it be for good or bad in the long run, only time will tell. But it's just meant to be provocative in a way. That's what I feel like.
I'm glad you brought up change, because I was gonna ask you how a poet can change the world. Because, and let me give this question a little bit of context. There's a lot of people out in the world who think creativity and being artistic is merely just, you know, entertainment for entertainment's sake, and they don't see the deeper layer of it, you know, the deeper purpose of it, the way that it can actually impact society.
Yeah.
So, in what ways can a poet change the world? Or poets, you know, not have to be one poet, but
right.
Poetry can change the world.
I feel like poetry can change the world by just giving people an outlet, just like how we talked about earlier, like giving people that outlet to be vulnerable allows other people to connect with people from, even if they're all across the world, they can connect based on poetry. And that's really, and being able to make connections, I don't know, like to me that's so powerful for us to make connections, like worldwide. That's so important because so many of the issues that we can't seem to, agree on or see eye to eye on, a lot of it could be avoided if we just connect with one another and like learn how to be vulnerable with one another and understand each other more. And that's where I feel like poetry comes in, because you can understand someone's point of view better. You may not like it, but you understand it. And I think change comes with understanding someone first. You have to understand each other, even if you're not from the same culture or whatever. It really does come with understanding. That's what I think.
That's a really good answer, honestly. I'm gonna double back because you said something about, you talked about inspiring change, and you talked about being provocative. In a way, do you think, in a way it sounds like poets are almost like philosophers in the way that, they challenge thought, but they're like creative philosophers. I don't know, this image is just coming to my mind. I wanted to express it. The image is like a creative philosopher, so like philosophy, but within an art form. And it challenges people's perspectives, it challenges people's beliefs, and it leads them to question things, like you said. I just want to throw that 2 cents in there. Philosophy came to my mind.
I think that's pretty accurate, honestly. Yeah, I feel like that's pretty accurate.
Yeah, I took that class in college. That class sucked. Just had to slip that in there. I wish I had took a damn poetry class, bro. What?
Right. They need that option. They really do.
They do. That'd be a cool elective for people.
Or like tie the two in together, like philosophy and poetry. I feel like that would be dope.
Right. I feel like philosophers speak in poetry anyway. Like, they be sounding poetic as hell.
For real, actually. I think in a way too, a lot of poets are inspired by philosophers, or maybe like the philosophers of their time,
Yeah, I think it's a lot of vice versa too in there. So, what would the world look like, in your opinion, of course, in your creative imagination? What would the world look like if poetry never existed?
If poetry never existed?
Yeah, that's a question right there.
Yeah.
That's a question.
Yeah, let me think about it. Dang, if poetry never existed, I mean, I feel like we would rely heavily on like visual arts, because that's still a way to express yourself. I feel like music wouldn't exist in the way that we know it, because I think music is heavily reliant upon poetry in a way, because it's like music is poetry in a way, to me, the way I see it. I feel like music would still be out there, but it would be very different, because it's like, I don't know. I don't know. I would hate to see it. I feel like that's a weird world to live in.
It's a world weird.
I feel like, I don't know, like could that exist? Because like people, in a way, it's like, I don't want to say everyone's a poet, but it's like, in some ways, people, like, I feel like everyone has said something poetic at one point, and like, you know what, this needs to be written down, like this. So like, if people just weren't writing it down anymore, or like they just weren't having those kind of thoughts, that would be a really scary world to live in. I don't know.
So it's a scary alternate universe.
Right, like we all just like hoard our thoughts to ourselves or something. I don't know.
So how do you think
our deeper thoughts anyway?
You spoke on like many creative aspects of life. How do you think it would affect like business? How do you think it would affect the way societies run, as far as like maybe financially or business wise, economic, maybe like the day-to-day life of a person? How do you think it would affect that?
If there was no poetry or no...
Because, I mean, what comes to my mind is, in a way, movies are very poetic, and...
Yeah.
A lot
like
of
everything, so much of the entertainment business to me is like kind of goes back to like having that kind of thought or having that kind of vision where a few lines come to mind, but even if it doesn't form like an actual poem, it's like it's a vision that someone had and they put it out there. And that's the same thing with poetry. Poetry is like a vision someone had, but they just wrote it. But like whereas a movie is like a vision someone had, but they wanted to make a whole production out of it instead of just writing it. So it's like, to me, I feel like that would kind of undermine the entertainment industry a lot, and that would be pretty bad for business also, because I think businesses rely a lot on marketing as well. So marketing is all about knowing how to persuade and, you know, tapping into people's feelings, what's going to make people feel a certain feeling that they want them to feel. So I think businesses wouldn't be doing too well, honestly, without poetry. Like, I don't know, it would be a really bleak kind of world to live in. When I think about it, like, it's just, I don't know. That's a tough one. That's a tough one.
That's definitely a toughie. I should have gave you a briefing on that one. Just you could brainstorm some ideas.
I'm like, dang. But yeah, that sounds kind of sad. Like, that sounds like, I'm like thinking about it, I'm just like, ooh, like, I don't like that. But yeah.
It'd definitely be, I picture like an old TV set where there's no color. That's what I picture.
Yeah, that's what that's exactly what comes to mind. I'm just like, kind of just like dull. Like, yeah, we're going about our life and doing our things, but like, there's that color is missing. That spark is missing. The thing that connects us all and gives us life and makes us want to get up in the morning and be happy to do it every day. Like, it's kind of missing. We're not being vulnerable with each other. We're just kind of just going about our life day to day.
Yeah, it's doing task after task, and yeah, you lose the color. You definitely lose the color there. It's tough. It's tough.
Dang, that's a sad world to live in. Don't want to see it. But yeah.
So
something to think about, though.
Definitely something to think about, and my whole spiel and series as far as like asking the question of what is the role of insert creative medium in society is for people to really think, like, what is the effect of fashion on society? Like, what is the effect of music in the world, and how does it actually impact the world? Because you can really just look at it simply and be like, oh, I like this song, and like that's all it means to you is just, oh, I like this song. But for people in general and for the world, like, music is everything, you know? Like, fashion it says a lot about you, you know? It says a lot about life, and if everybody had to wear the same shit every day, then how would that affect the world, you know?
Right.
How would that affect people?
No, I think it's really important to like put things in perspective like that, into like, you know, a big picture type of deal, because, you know, people, like you said, like, people do often not look at, you know, creativity as something that's of value, and it should be looked at as something of value, especially like within the school system. Like, people, they often prioritize like logistical type of subjects like math or science or whatever, but it's like creativity really does need to be looked at and valued, because it's important, and it's almost like they don't want to acknowledge how important it is because they know how powerful it is. So
that's a good point. Because, you know, in today's world, we idolize the innovators and the creators like Elon Musk and stuff like that, but those people are equally as creative as they are intelligent.
yeah,
And it's that blend that makes them, you know, geniuses or whatever you want to call them. It's that blend of creativity, innovation, and intellect that makes them, you know, worth celebrating. So, we always end on this question on the Art this path, what advice would you give to a poet who's struggling to see the value in their work?
I would say, my advice, I would say keep writing and keep sharing that writing with others. Even if you're just like, you know what, I don't think anyone's gonna read it, keep sharing it anyways. Doesn't matter, keep sharing it. Keep going to places or going to venues where you're able to share your writing. Just connect with other people who write as well, because they're gonna read it. Someone out there's an audience for everything. Someone's gonna read it. Like, someone's. And that'll get you to see the value in what you're doing. I feel like that's definitely gonna give you that aha moment. Like, okay, like, this is valuable. Like, I do have a place in the world to do this. Like, it is my duty to do this. Like, this, yeah. That's the advice I'd give.